With the bye week upon us, it's time to basically evaluate every part of our team. And one position in particular is one that Kevin O'Connell made mentions of after that horrific, probably the worst game I've ever seen, Monday night performance against the Chicago Bears, and that's the quarterback position. What do we do going forward after the bye week at that quarterback position? Do we stick with Josh Dobbs, who might end up, being on a short leash? Do we go to Nick Mullins, who was the backup for Dobbs against the Bears? Or do we go to rookie quarterback Jaren Hall, who had a pretty decent start against the Atlanta Falcons before suffering that concussion? I'm not 100% sure. I'll give you my two thoughts of what might happen, what I think the Vikings are going to choose to do. But this article I'm going to read a couple blurbs from basically lays out the situation currently at hand and what or how Justin Jefferson's return might impact that decision at the quarterback position moving forward. So let's get right into it. It says, after Monday's performance against the Chicago Bears, it's not certain that Josh Dobbs will start the next game for the Minnesota Vikings. Now, Dobbs threw 4 interceptions in the 12-10 loss and would have thrown a fifth had Jalen Johnson not dropped a certain pick six before halftime. It was right in his hands. It was, like they said, it was a certain pick six. It was going to happen anyways, but he dropped it, all right? But after the game, head coach Kevin O'Connell declined to commit to Dobbs as Minnesota's starting quarterback against the Las Vegas Raiders. The Vikings have a bye this week before facing the Raiders in Week 14, and O'Connell intends to spend part of that time evaluating Dobbs and Minnesota's other options at quarterback amid the season-ending Achilles injury to starter Kirk Cousins. Now, the other options, like I noted earlier, are backup Nick Mullins and third-string rookie Jaren Hall, who was our emergency quarterback last week against the Chicago Bears. This is what O'Connell said. We're going to take a look, really evaluate the inventory of plays now that we have of Josh, and we got healthy. We've got Jaren back available to us, and Nick Mullins is available as well. But with Justin Jefferson returning, that's definitely going to have an impact because Jefferson really, loves Kirk Cousins. So you got to make that superstar receiver, the cornerstone of your offense, happy or as happy as possible, especially when he's going into a potential contract extension year. It's going to happen. We have to lock him up for big time. So what does that mean, right? O'Connell said that on Tuesday, that Jefferson's return is going to impact that decision on who to start at quarterback. Here's what O'Connell said per ESPN. We're going to make sure that whoever is playing quarterback is aware and understands the intent behind plays where either Justin is the primary or based upon coverage, based upon the defensive look, how to quickly and efficiently get to the right place to go with the football. But he also implied that Dobbs' relative newness to the Vikings offense could put him at a disadvantage. He said that there's still a lot of things that are new for him, and just the margin of error when you're talking about the NFL pass game can be razor thin sometimes. The difference between conversions and chances for catch and runs versus potential turnover-worthy plays is such a small margin of error. So where do we go from here? I want to hear from you guys in the comment section. Who do you think the Vikings should start? And really think it over, because all three options are great. We've seen what Dobbs had, at least at the beginning of his Viking tenure here. He came over, stepped in for an injured Jaren Hall, and took the league by storm. He was an absolute psychopath out there. He was a great quarterback for us. We thought, just a couple weeks ago, people were saying maybe Dobbs is the new future starting quarterback for the Minnesota Vikings. And I was like, well, maybe, but then we could spend money elsewhere if that was going to be the case. But I really don't see it. Look, every time Josh goes to a new place, doesn't know the playbook really that well, he does great. But then he learns the playbook. And then we see these mistakes start happening and piling up. And against Chicago this past week, it was very apparent that literally every time he threw the ball, he was forcing it. There was only a handful of throws that he didn't force it. And a lot of those were to Brandon Powell, the jet sweeps, the quick over the middle, like little drag routes that Powell was running, or even just check down throws to Alexander Madison or Ty Chandler, whoever was on the field at that time. But a lot of Josh Dobbs' throws were forced. And there was that one to Jordan Addison where Addison has to be aware of where he's at on the field. He stepped out of bounds clearly even before the ball got to his hands. But Josh is starting to force the ball. It seems as if he's only making one read. It doesn't seem like he's making 2 reads or 3 reads. He knows the play. He's like, that's my first read. That's where I have to go with the ball. And that's exactly what it looked like against the Chicago Bears. And that's worrisome, especially if Justin comes back. Because if Justin comes back, he's your number one receiver. Most likely, he's going to be your number one read on probably 70 to 80% of your plays, where you can't just huck it down the field and hope he comes away with it, even though the majority of the time, or at least over 50% of the time, he's going to come down with it. So that's something we have to evaluate with Josh Dobbs. He has to be comfortable making decisions or be comfortable making different decisions than just his primary route that he's going to throw to, basically is what I'm saying. And Jaren Hall, he was our emergency quarterback. So that tells you right there, do the Vikings really trust Jaren Hall to be the starter at this point in his career? Do they trust him to be a backup? What's the case there? I think he looked good against the Atlanta Falcons when we gave him that chance, but the playbook could have been a little bit dumbed down, and that's probably why Josh Dobbs was able to come in and have a little bit of, somewhat of some success over there against the Falcons. And then you look at Nick Mullins. We really haven't seen anything of him besides that preseason game. He's played a couple ball games for the 49ers in the past in the regular season, so he could be an option as well. But we have three options on the table that are very questionable. Like, you don't really want to roll with any of them, but you have to roll with one of them. So, as I sit here today and I'm thinking, what are the Vikings going to do? In all honesty, the smart decision, or the most likely decision, is that the Vikings are going to roll with Josh Dobbs, but he's going to be on a short leash, right? After that third pick, I said, okay, time to see Mullins. We did not see Nick Mullins. We let him go in there. He threw a fourth pick, which would have been 5. But if Josh Dobbs gets to start, one pick, he's benched. That's when you throw in Nick Mullins. If Mullins does the same thing, then maybe you go back to Dobbs, because you can't put that emergency third quarterback in unless the starting quarterback and the backup quarterback get hurt. But you have to look at it that way. Who are the best 2 potential quarterbacks that you can have in your active lineup against the Raiders week 14? That is what you have to look at first. My opinion, it's going to be Dobbs, just because of what he's been able to do. 5 interceptions the last 2 weeks. And I believe 1 or 2 fumbles or something like that. 1 fumble he lost. So you have to look at that situation, but you also have to take in mind Justin Jefferson's coming back. Who is he gonna want throwing the rock to him? I think that's gonna be Josh Dobbs, but again, it's gonna be on a short leash. You guys can let me know in the comment section below who you think the Vikings should roll with week 14 after this bye week. Also, drop a like and subscribe to the channel. It'd be much, much appreciated. Have a great rest of your night, folks, and Skull Vikes.